Hello my crochet friends, this is Sarah from Ned and Mimi and welcome to the second part of the Tunisian Chevron blanket video series. So in part one we covered all of the materials needed to make our blanket and we also made the very first panel. Now in part two we are going to learn how to join in the second panel and all subsequent panels using the join as you go method. And we will also cover how to block our blanket once we're finished to iron out any little curling or shaping issues. So without further ado, let us get on to panel 2 now. So now we are ready to get straight into the second panel. So what I'm going to do is join in a new strand of yarn at this marked chain down here, and I'm actually going to go for a different starting color here because I think it is just going to make everything a little bit easier to see. So here we go. So to join it in, I'm just going to insert my hook through both of the loops of this marked chain. So this can be a tiny bit tricky, especially if that chain was tight, but just do your best to get your hook through both of those loops. And then I just need to yarn over the new color and it is joined in. So I'm going to chain 22 here now. So this is one less than your starting chain from the first panel. And the reason is that because we are using the join as you go method, your first stitch here, so this is always the first loop on your hook, this is actually going to act as the end stitch for the second panel. So that's why we need one less chain. So away we go, chaining 22 nice and loosely. And again, try and have that last chain as loose as you can get it. So now we're just going to work our foundation row, picking up loops in the back bumps as we did previously and skipping the first chain from the hook. So into the second back bump and then just pick up those loops all the way along the chain. Now again here, it is actually a good idea to just get your stitch marker and mark that missed chain because it's just going to make the third panel a lot easier. So away we go. So that is the forward pass of our foundation row done. So just do a quick count of your loops here just to make sure you have 22. So now what we're going to do is join in to the foundation row of the first panel. So what we're going to do here is just find the first stitch of that foundation row. So there it is here. You can see our V's all up along the edge. And if we insert our yarn needle through the center of that V and out the back, you'll also see that behind the V there is another little loop, and that is where we need to insert our hook to do the join. So we're going right through the middle of the V and the loop behind it. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we'll just tighten things up a little there. So in through the V and then also through that bump, and it looks like there are 2 loops on the hook. So now to do the join, we're just going to yarn over and pull through that edge stitch, and we're also going to continue pulling through one of the loops on the hook. And I know that might seem a little bit confusing, but basically by pulling straight through that first loop, we are making the join nice and tight and pulling the edges nice and close together. So now I just need to do the return pass as normal, except that I don't need to chain 1 because that join took the place of our chain 1. So remember we said that the first stitch of the first panel is going to act as the end stitch of the last panel, and that join is instead of doing our chain 1. So I know it might seem a little bit confusing now, but after you've done a few rows, it'll all come together. So let's just go ahead and do the return pass as normal, and then we will get on to the second row, which is going to be our shaping row. Okay, so that is the foundation row done. So our shaping is going to be exactly the same as we did previously. We'll yarn over for our increase, then we'll do 9 Tunisian simple stitches, and then we'll do our decrease. So let's just check our loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Very good. And then we'll do our decrease. And now 9 more Tunisian simple stitches. Now this last one can be a little bit tight, so you just might need to loosen it up a little bit there, but don't skip it. So there's 9. Then we need to do our increase, so we'll just yarn over before we do the join. And now we're going to join into the second row in exactly the same way as the previous one. So through that V and through the back loop there. So it can be a tiny, tiny bit tricky. And then we'll just yarn over and pull through, and then continue to pull through that first loop as well. So now we'll just do the return pass as normal, but again, leaving out that chain 1 step. Okay, so that is row 2 done and 2 of our joins done, and it's already looking really nice and neat. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll work 3 more rows in this colour and join in along here. And then for the next block, I'm actually going to work a 2-tone section. So I'm going to put it here instead, and I'll just show you how we do the joins when we're changing colour at the same time. It's going to be exactly the same method, but it is a little bit trickier just because there are so many ends and different colours hanging out of the back. So I'm going to go ahead and just work my next 3 rows, and I will see you back here for the 2-tone section. Okay, so I have worked 5 complete rows for this first colour, and I've also begun the 6th row with the same colour, because the next section is going to be our 2-tone section, which means we do the forward pass with the existing colour and then introduce the new colour for the return pass. Now, before I get to that, I'm just going to flip things over because there is quite a lot happening back here with our different ends and tails. And I'm actually just going to tie a very loose knot with these 2 ends just to keep them in place, because otherwise this join can get a little bit tricky and messy. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and weave in all your ends as you go, or you can leave them until the end like I usually tend to do. All right, so let's flip around to the front. Now, to do our join, we still need to do our increase, so don't forget about that. So we'll yarn over, that's the increase done. We'll insert our hook through the V of the next row and that bump right behind it as we normally would, but instead of yarning over our existing colour, we're going to grab the next one and yarn over that instead. So we can just leave the current colour there because we are not going to cut it just yet. So we'll yarn over the new colour and pull through like so, and then as always pulling through the first loop on our hook. And you might just want to tighten things up a little bit there just to make the return pass a little bit easier. So I know it looks like there is a lot happening here, and we do have a lot of strands and a lot of tails hanging around, but honestly, once you have done this a few times, it'll be absolutely no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and do the return pass now, so just yarning over and pulling through 2 loops all the way along. Okay, so there we have it. That's our return pass done. So as we did previously, I'm just going to work the forward pass with the current colour and then changing back to the previous colour on the return pass. So I'll do that once more now just to show you that join again, and after that I think you are going to be good to go. Okay, so now for our join, we are just going to do our increase as normal, insert our hook through both of those loops. We're not going to yarn over the existing colour, we'll just keep that to the back and the right. We'll grab the previous colour, yarn over and pull through, and then also pulling through that first loop. And that is the join done. So you might just need to come around to the back here, give a little pull on all those tails and strands just to make sure they're still in place, and then just go ahead with your return pass. So don't worry if some of the loops become a little loose. That is going to happen with all of these color changes, and you can tighten them up as you go, or you can just come back and tighten them up when you are weaving in your ends as well. So just keep an eye on them that nothing is becoming undone, and they should be absolutely fine. Alrighty, so at this stage, you know almost everything you need to know to be able to complete this project. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and finish my swatch. I am going to work my two-tone section here, then I'm going to change to my orange, my third colour here, and then I'm going to actually work the last colour block in this very first colour. And then, once I've done the bind off row, I will show you how to join the two bind off rows together. And there is a very nice way to do it using a yarn needle for an almost invisible join. So I will go ahead and finish off my swatch, and I will see you back here for that finishing section. Okay, so I have finished my second panel, and I have just worked the bind off row here to finish off the top section. And now I just want to show you how I am going to join this bind off row to the first one that we worked. So you could just slip stitch to this first slip stitch here from panel 1, but what I like to do is actually grab my yarn needle, and I'm just going to cut my yarn here and just pull it all the way through. So we're not going to fasten off, but just continue pulling it through. And then I'm going to work what's called an invisible join, and this is going to just kind of create a fall stitch over this seam line or this center line here where we've done the joins, and give a nice seamless edge all along the top. So to do our invisible join, we're going to insert our needle from bottom to top through that slip stitch, and then just pull very gently on the yarn. And now we're going to go back to the last slip stitch that we just worked and go right through the center there and all the way out the back. And then if we just pull gently there, it creates this false stitch. And if we lay it flat, you'll see that we have this really nice seamless shape. And all that's left to do then is weave in our end at the back. So that is the swatch made. Now you'll notice we have plenty of ends that have to be woven in. So you can take care of those as you go, or you can leave them all until the end. It's completely up to you. And you'll also notice that we do have a degree of curling here, and this is completely normal with Tunisian crochet. And the best way to address it is to block your piece really, really well. So I am going to go ahead and weave in my ends, finish everything off, and then we will block the swatch so that you can see what the finished project is going to look like. Okay, so it is time to block our swatch. Now, blocking is a whole topic on its own, so I'm not going to go into all the details, but basically with blocking, we're introducing heat and moisture to our project, and that enables us to shape it in the way that we want. So you can think about it along the same lines as when you wash your hair and let it dry naturally, it kind of does its own thing, and then if you use a hair straightener or a hair dryer, you have a little bit more control over how it is going to look, and that is exactly what we were doing when we block our crochet projects. So the yarn that I used in my swatch and in my blanket is a mixture of wool and acrylic. And because it is more acrylic than wool, I am going to steam block this swatch. So generally with natural fibres like wool or cotton, the recommended method is wet blocking, where you soak your piece and then you pin it out wet and leave it to dry. But for acrylic, steam blocking is generally what is recommended. Now you do need to be careful that you don't get the heat or the steam too close to your acrylic fibres, because it can really damage it, so you do have to be a little bit careful. Now I am using a garment steamer here that I use on my clothes, but if you don't have one of these, you can just use an iron that has a steam setting. So I'm going to pin out my swatch while it is still dry, and then once I'm happy with the shape, I'll go ahead and apply the steam. I'm using a blocking mat that I got recently actually, and it has all these handy little grid lines. So I used to use my kids' play mats, but actually this one is much better because it's much easier to line everything up exactly the way that I want. So when we're pinning out, we're just taking care not to stretch or work out too much. So all we want to do is give it a nice even shape, iron out any lumps or bumps or uneven edges, and in this case with Tunisian crochet we need to sort out some of this curling as well. So I'll go ahead and finish pinning out, and then I'll get on with the steaming. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, so let's apply the steam. Now I'm going to take care to stay at least an inch or two above the fabric, just to make sure that I don't damage those acrylic fibres. Okay, so I think that is pretty good. I can feel that it's a little bit damp from the steam and still a little bit warm. And now I just have to let it dry completely and it will be good to go. So there we have it. My blanket is all done. I have woven in all my ends. I have blocked to remove that curling, and I'm so thrilled with how this has turned out. So thank you so much for joining me to make this Tunisian crochet blanket. I really hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. And of course, if you do have a second to like this video and subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. And I have lots more free crochet patterns on my website nedandmimi.com, so do be sure to check those out. Happy crocheting and take care.